Hi guys, thanks for joining us again today on another Team LRF podcast. Today I'm joined by PCA judge and posing expert Emma Summers. Emma, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks Rob. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Emma, excited for the season?
Extremely. So excited. Possibly more excited than I was for Christmas.
Yeah. I was saying to somebody the other day, like when you're involved in the season, it seems like such a long season, and then when there's no shows, you're like, oh, seems like we haven't had one for ages now. So
yeah, you're right. It's you wonder how much work you can fit into such a short day when the shows aren't on.
Yeah, no, for sure. So for Emma, for those who don't know you, just give us a bit of background about yourself, your competing history, and your introduction into judging as well.
Yeah, sure. So my background is actually nothing to do with bodybuilding. I was a fresh starter about 7 or 8 years ago into even a gym. My background is gymnastics. I was a gymnast to a British squad level. Loved sort of any kind of sport really from a competitive point of view. Team sports, also individual sports. Never trained in a gym, but of course as a gymnast you can imagine to some level of a degree of working out, and but it was more body weight sort of working. So lifting weights and stuff was completely alien to me. Started in the gym, as I said, about 7 or 8 years ago. Liked it, but I kind of didn't feel like I was going anywhere. I didn't want to just do it for the sake of working out and looking good. I've got that competitive drive in me. So slowly sort of led down the path of competitive bodybuilding, and the rest is history. Competed MPA, started off with them. I've competed with NABA over the years a few times, and then more lately with my latter competitions of my career was with PCA. And then obviously that developed into the judging.
Was you always involved in figure, Emma? Was you doing bikini, or did you think about doing bikini?
I wish I could say I could have done bikini, but my shape is just not a bikini girl. I love doing the posing with the bikini girls. It's great. I think because I'm a figure girl, it's nice to have that little bit of difference as well. Create some sort of flavor with their poses. But no, my shape, I'm very broad in my shoulders, very stocky up top. Calves are absolutely enormous, which is not what you want for bikini. So the complete opposite for bikini, sadly. But I would have loved to.
Okay, so always involved in figure, which is great. It's still one of them classes which is still ever growing as well. Just like obviously everyone always talks about bikinis growing, but figure is still a very popular class as well, and it's still ever growing as well. So that's great. Yeah.
Massively. I mean, last year, we've all struggled with the COVID situation. It was such an explosive year considering what we've all been through. And we were blown away by even the trained figure girls. There were so many of them. It was completely unexpected, but it was really, really great to see. As you've said, the bikini, you would assume more athletes involved in that, but it's really great, really positive to see the figure girls still up there too.
Yeah, awesome. And obviously you started your competing career off, and then you have now sort of gone into judging. Was that always like sort of a pathway that you thought of, that, oh, okay, I want to do this, or was it just did it just sort of naturally happen?
Yeah, completely naturally, actually. Never thought about judging. My last competition I did was the PCA World Championships back in 2018. And I think it was the British finals a week or two before that, actually. My husband was in the audience, and Ryan had mentioned something on the mic about, if you want to judge, feel free to contact us. Obviously, me being on stage, I didn't hear it. He did. And I knew going into that last season, that was going to be my last push. Possibly not forever, but for a particularly long time anyway. So he said, how about this? Because I love the industry enormously. I didn't want to completely remove myself. From a competitive point of view, it had to come to an end, but it was really nice that sort of naturally went into the judging. So spoke to Ryan, and here we are.
Yeah, awesome. Like, I don't think many people know about your competitive history, and that you were reasonably successful, more than reasonably successful, to be honest, as a competitor. Because obviously the industry moves so fast. People don't realize that 2018 wasn't that long ago, and especially with COVID, there's been a lot of shows since then, but there's not been a lot of, for example, British champions since then. And that might even have been the last universe. I think was that the last universe?
It was the last World Championships. Yeah. So the first universe is this year, but yeah, the last World Championships. Yeah.
So I don't think people actually realize that you was, relatively successful, as I said, beyond relatively successful as a competitor, because they see you now as Emma the judge. So it's great to know that you've walked that road, and you've followed this. Well, they're going to follow the same footsteps of you as going on stage and stuff like that. So which is awesome. But putting your judge's head on now and just thinking about sort of as a judge, there'll be a lot of first timers who listen to this show, a lot of girls and guys who are thinking about competing with the PCA or who have competed with the PCA before. As a judge, is there something that really stands out for you, like when somebody first competes or when they first go on stage?
I think it's an objective sport, an objective judging system. When the athletes first come out on stage for me, male and female, similar to really when I'm coaching them separately from judging in a posing environment, I try and teach my posing athletes and even athletes that I don't pose with, people that ask for feedback, always try and remember that try and allow your physique to jump out as a whole. I remember I was taught that once by an old friend. Try not to let anything individual sort of jump out. You want the whole of your physique to come at me as a whole. And I think when I then put my judge's hat on, that's what my instinct is drawing me towards. It's their physique as a whole, their aura jumping out at me when they first come out.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because when I look at a physique, especially from an audience standpoint, like a lot of people look at strong body parts. Oh, you've got strong shoulders, or you've got strong legs. I think an experienced eye actually tends to look for the lowest amount of weak points rather than, oh, you've got the strongest this or you've got the strongest that, because like you say, sometimes like one body part can stand out, but it also might take away them from the other parts of the body. So yeah, I think from an experienced side, for somebody who's done it for a while, I always, when I look at people, when I look at things on stage, I think, well, who's got the small, like the lowest amount of weaknesses, rather than, oh, who's got the best X or the best Y, who's got the best presentation, or who's got the best physique, who's got the smallest amount of weaknesses. I always look at that and try and think that. Is that something that you would maybe just try and summarize that as, is looking at that and looking for that?
Yeah, so there will be an element of, once that sort of first assessment has been made about who's jumping out as me as a whole, then it has to, your judging really gets challenged, because now you have to really pick apart more of the intricacies. So then, yeah, that's we would go down that path then about muscularity, condition, and make those comparisons. That's why we move people around on stage, because we want to make sure we've got the right decision, we've got the people that stood next to each other in the right positions to make those intricate comparisons. So yeah.
And you speak about things like level of muscularity, condition. Obviously there are a couple of bikini classes, and there are like 3 figure classes, and obviously we've now got the introduction of the wellness class as well. I know the criteria is online, it is available for people to read, but could you just break down the classes for us, just so people, again, who maybe haven't been to a show and who might be competing in their first show, just understand it a little bit better?
Sure. So similarly to touching on what I said before about my frame, and I would have loved to be a bikini athlete, sometimes that can be an element. Your natural framework, not muscle, but framework, broad shoulders, small waist. This goes for all categories, more breadth through the lats, perhaps. Sometimes that's not genetic. You may have a larger rib frame. Sometimes genetics is an element. It was for me, which is why I've never done bikini. But then muscularity, natural growth, natural progression. Some of the girls feel that they have to start in bikini and then move to figure, but we try and avoid the comparison of the 2 categories. Framework, I would say, is more what needs to be looked upon from categories. if you're able to do one or the other. But muscularity, you can quite easily pass through back and forth. Some of the girls like starting with bikini and then feeling it's a progression to go to figure. But, you know, some of the bikini trained girls are absolutely phenomenal. And it's hard work getting to that position. So having the comparison of the two should be always remain separate, in my opinion. Yeah, from bikini for sort of new first timers, a bit of information about that. Bikini, we want to see a nice toned physique with a reasonable amount of condition to display that physique. Trained bikini, a trained physique rather than a toned physique, again in this sort of similar areas: shoulders, glutes, small waist, as it is with most categories, even the boys. Figure, toned, again, it's just, that's what it says on the tin, really. We want to see a nice toned shape to the physique, with, again, similar to the bikini, toned with a sort of a softened sort of approach with the condition. Athletic figure, more of an athletic physique, so the muscularity improves there from, or greatens there, not improves, but from the toned figure, but more condition. And then even more so with the trained figure girls, the jump up in muscularity is again very obvious, very significant, with even more condition attached to it.
And if somebody sits on the fence, Emma, and they're like, I don't know, or maybe I sit in the middle of a class, what would you recommend?
Yeah, it's tough. Somebody, one of my posing girls, her coach contacted me the other day about this. We had a girl last year compete with us who was on the fence. She's competed with bikini trained and athletic figure. She did both last year. She did really successfully in both. But sometimes you have to be on stage to realize, comparing yourself to the other athletes, where you're drawn more from you know, the eye from the judges. This is the advice that I gave to the person that reached out to me last week. Sometimes you just have to step on the stage. You have to sort of let go of that possibility of perhaps winning one competition. You might play second because your physique's probably still really good, but sometimes you just have to play it by ear. There's a lot of girls that are on that spectrum, which is great because that means they've got a really good physique. It's just about trying to figure out where they need to go. But don't take it as a disadvantage. It's a great thing to have, an advantage to have. But yeah, just see where you are actually on the stage, and then that feedback will perhaps push you in the avenue that you prefer. Yeah,
I think that's a great piece of advice, actually, because you see a lot of individuals who on their own look fantastic, and then when they get in a lineup, sometimes they get a little bit lost, and vice versa as well. You see sometimes people who stand there on their own and you think, oh, they look okay. And then when they go into a lineup, you're like, wow, where did this person come from? And you see that quite a lot. So that's a really good bit of advice. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So from somebody, Emma, who is not only, you know, a fantastic judge, but also a fantastic posing coach as well. When people come to you for posing lessons and posing advice, what are some of the common elements and mistakes that you potentially pick up on, like almost off the bat?
Yeah, so aside from posing and bodybuilding, I've been involved in the rehab industry for 13-14 years without giving away my age. This year it'll be 14 years. I teach Pilates, so I've worked with physios, chiropractors, all of it for a long time, and I'm a stickler for posture and I'm a stickler for muscular activation. So when obviously my gymnastics background as well, I coached gymnastics for quite some time also on the back of my gymnastics career, and there's interesting overlaps with all of them actually. It's posture, it's technique, it's making sure the muscles are activating correctly. So when I approach my posing in the posing coach environment with the girls, I very much apply my knowledge from my background with Pilates to the posing, flexibility, posture. A lot of the girls, most of the time, I'm correcting the posture, I'm remolding them, so to speak. If your posture is good, posing is easy, so easy. I mean, I teach Pilates every day of my life. It's my job. My flexibility is of a level where the posing comes easily to me. So if I'm something to go by, do Pilates every day. That wasn't a sales pitch.
No, I think again, I think until, just like we said about like the classes, until you stand in a lineup, you don't know. Until you try and pose, I don't think people realize like how hard it is to, for example, to switch your lats on. Like, you know, when people say, you know, just switch your lats on, and some people think, what, oh my God, like what are you talking about? Like, and then when you try and do it, like it's always really difficult. So like you say, that connection to the muscle is really, really important for sure. Yeah. No, so yeah. So in terms of opposing, Emma, a client comes to you as opposing, when they come to you as opposing client, would you do like an initial assessment with them and then give them a little bit of homework and stuff like that?
Absolutely, yeah. I approach it very systematically in just the same way that I do with my Pilates clients. You know, I assess their posture. We'll run through the poses. Some of them have perhaps practiced some before. Some of them have had other posing coaches before, which is great. I'm all for sort of creating lots of diversity. Everybody can add an element of difference from another. We'll go through where they're at, find you know, what's the starting point, but I'm looking at the posture massively. That's just instinctive for me because of my job. So yeah, definitely homework. In the nicest way possible. I mostly set them homework, but it's stretches, it's mobility work. It's not, you know, go away and practice a cartwheel here and there. It's stretching, which again, you know, I do say to the girls, take bodybuilding out of the equation. It's good for you to do this anyway. So, you know, it's a bonus, a double bonus, so to speak.
Yeah, and again, for first timers, which again is a huge market these days, how soon would you practice posing if you decide to do a show? If you're going to say I'm 15 weeks out, when would you start?
I'm classic example. Thought I was, you know, dancing background, gymnastics background. Oh, I don't need to practice it. And if I look back on my photos, in fact, no, I tell a lie. I don't look back on my photos from my first competition. You know, we've all got to start somewhere. I'm sure all the other posing coaches say the same thing. You learn. Your background then depicts the level of how good you become, perhaps. But I thought I was, you know, the bee's knees. Oh, I didn't need to practice it. I'm going to be really good. Now I look back, that, you know, complete opposite. It's like anything. If I was to ask you to learn how to do a cartwheel tomorrow, Rob, would you be able to do it? That's the big question.
I could do a roly-poly. Is that right?
A roly-poly. That's not bad. That's not bad. But you know, you wouldn't leave it till the last minute to practice it. It's the same thing. It's like doing your homework at school. Although I wasn't pretty good at doing that with a lot of time either. You know, the earlier you start, the better it is. Some of my girls, they're not competing until September this year, but they came to me at July last year. So the situation that they're in now is they've got their flexibility in check, their posture's improved, everything's where it needs to be. Now the gas pedal can sort of calm down a little bit, and they can really focus on their prep leading into their competition. So you've got so much to think about, as you know, leading into a competition already. If you've got that posing not in the forefront of your mind, but in the back, and it's just natural, then it does make life easier.
No, for sure. And one of the things I always explain in terms of a posing aspect is, say for example, your physique is a 10 and your posing is a 2, then your average score will be 10 plus 2, which will equal 6. But for example, if for example your physique is an 8, but your posing is an 8, clearly your physique isn't as good as the other person, but your average score is an 8. So therefore, you will potentially beat somebody who's got a better physique, but isn't as good as a poser. So that's always something that I always try and drum into people from early on. Like, you know, if you can get a 10 out of 10 for your posing, worst case scenario is you mess up your peak week, nothing goes well, and your physique looks like a 5 where it should maybe look like an 8, but you still scored 15. Over an overall thing. But you know, if for example your posing is poor and you're scoring a 5 and your physique is a 5, then you're not going to be beating somebody who's got a 10 and a 10.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to both, I think, really. I mean, I know, again, now I'm judging, I know my weaknesses, and that's why I've not been in any quick shape to step back on stage, because I know now what a judge is looking for. And I know my physique very well, and I'm very critical of it. But looking back on my competitive career, I was very good at hiding my weaknesses, and I've got a lot of weaknesses compared to a lot of the other girls. And that's just my framework. It's not muscularity, it's just the way I'm genetically framed, but I was good at hiding it. So it's really, really important. And I always use myself as the example with my girls, because I've got a lot of weak areas and most of my posing girls don't have as many as I do. So if I can hide them, then, you know, anybody can hide them.
Absolutely, and again, like I always, again, I try and drum that into people. It's not about who's got the strongest shoulders or who's got the best back. It's really about who's got the least weaknesses, and that's what's going to win you those shows. Which again, because I think people look at, you know, especially nowadays, people look at people on social media and they'll think, oh, that person's got better shoulders than me, they're going to beat me. They got better legs than me, they're going to beat me. But they don't realize that, as I said, it is a game of, right, well, how many weaknesses have you got versus how many weaknesses have they got? Can they portray their physique, like you say? Because again, if you're posing as a 10 and the girl next to you is a 5, then it just goes down to, you know, the overall score. Then, so yeah. No.
Yeah, and I think from a judge's perspective, to put my judge's hat on for a moment, I think there's always an element of, yes, your posing might be really good, but you know, when I'm sat behind the judge's table, I don't have my posing hat on, I've got my judge's hat on, and so I'm not critiquing their posing. That's important. It's good to display good posing, but the judge won't be looking at your posing. They are looking at your physique, and that's what we do at PCA. We're able to, even though the poses look good, we are able to, if it's required, to make sure that the athlete who does have that physique is given the gold, silver, or bronze.
Yeah, no, absolutely, no, for sure. And then we look at, you know, the PCA as a whole, and you've mentioned a few times when you're judging, or you know, you've seen, and we spoke about the start of the podcast, you've seen a huge number of competitors come through over the last few years, like the growth and growth and growth. Like I remember speaking to Ryan, I remember being at the first show in 2016, and, you know, people saying, oh, you know, it's never going to last, not really sure what's going to happen. You know, speed up 6 years down the line, and it's probably, you know, in terms of number of competitors, the biggest federation in the country, if not, you know, very close second. Where does PCA go from here? Because it continues to grow. So where do you see it going from here?
I think when it first started, I was just a mouse in the industry, and I had no idea about the upcoming of it. But you're quite right. As I've morphed into the PCA family, it's just exploded, particularly, as you said, in the last 3 or 4 years. Our plan progression, I mean, already we control the highest number of amateur athletes in the UK, if not worldwide. And moving forwards, our plan is to replicate that in our pro circuit, which is really good at the moment, but we want to replicate the numbers that we already have in the industry leading from an amateur point of view.
Yeah, for sure. And the first time is huge for you guys, and you know, I know you are the only people in the UK who will, maybe even within Europe, that guarantee, you know, a true first time show, which is incredible. And those numbers seem to be you know, ever growing as well. And you know, speaking to Ryan, it sounds like this year could be potentially even bigger.
It's massive, and it's so exciting. The energy that are at the first time competitions is just awesome. We love the first time competitions. The audience love it. I mean, the audience love any competition really, but the first timers, there's just a different energy. You know, it's fresh, it's new. It's like your first day at school. It's everything's bright and smiley, and it's just really nice to have the energy of these new athletes with us.
And the standard of the first timers nowadays is incredible. You know, it's up there with any other show, if not possibly potentially surpassing some of the other shows as well, because it's an incredible, you know, it's this, like you said earlier, like some people are starting in July to compete in September next year. You know, they're giving themselves a full 18 months, where I think sometimes some seasoned competitors can forget that, you know, that, you know, it takes that long to get ready for a show. It takes that long to prepare physically, mentally, get yourself in the right place. And now I think the standard of the first time is incredible, and it's something that I've seen improved like vastly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think with anything, it's human nature in life. As familiarity creeps in a little bit, things can relax slightly. So it's just, as a bodybuilder, whether you're a first time or not, or first timers that then they're going to continue and not be first timers anymore, of course, staying on top of it, making sure that you're still pushing just as hard as when you were that nervous first timer. You know, because I remember my husband, when we first started training together years ago, we don't anymore because I train differently. But he always used to say to me, somebody is always working harder than you, Emma. So, you know, bear that in mind. And that used to push me really hard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. So in terms of your posing, Emma, I know you are at the couple of the seminars that people are doing. Is that right? The free seminars.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. Exciting.
Yeah, but in terms of one-to-one lessons, is that something that you do? How can people get a hold of you? And where can they get a hold of you as well?
Yeah, sure. So I've not long away launching a website and an app. My brand is Fit by Emma, which involves my Pilates, involves my posing, and I'm heading into the fitness industry as well. Not bodybuilding, but the fitness. Just generally helping everyday people with fitness and whatnot. So booking, once that's gone live, booking at the moment, you just come through me. Contacting me on Instagram is great. Fit by Emma 1. But when the website goes live, the girls will be able to book to their heart's content, whatever time suits them. Face to face at the moment, just still book through me. Contact me on Instagram. I'm pretty interactive on there. So yeah, that's something exciting in the pipeline.
Yeah, but also if people can't get down for face to face, is it something that you offer online as well?
Absolutely. Online is actually really explosive as we get closer to the season starting, and it's really busy then during the whole season. I think COVID helps a little bit with that. I've noticed the difference with my Pilates as well. I do Pilates online, and before COVID, people didn't feel that they benefited as much from online, but COVID has sort of opened people's eyes, and actually it's really good for time management. Traveling back and forth. Some of the girls travel the country to see me for face-to-face sessions, which is so appreciated. But some people are very busy themselves, so a quick 30-minute, 60-minute online session is really good from time management, cost-wise as well. And you'd be surprised actually how much I can see on the camera to allow my natural scrutiny to come through.
No, for sure. I think COVID hasn't had many benefits, but one of them is definitely the emergence of the online posing world as well, for sure, and we've seen it really explode, which is great. So Emma, thank you ever so much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to let people know about, or any up and coming events that potentially the PCA might have?
Just have a great season, guys. PCA, we're all really, really excited to see you this year. Ryan and I had a chat this morning just about the universe, a few messages exchanged. Everybody in the PCA camp is buzzing. We've got the universe, we've got the expo at the end of the year. We have got an explosive year ahead of us, and we look forward to seeing you all there.
Awesome. Emma, thank you ever so much. I can't wait to see you at the first show, and I'm sure we'll speak before then.
Thanks, Rob.
Take care.